welcome to an Everyday Canines video. In this episode we're going to be talking about jumps. What is an agility jump? Okay, so this might seem simplistic, but in essence an agility jump is two wings, and these are wings. So we call these, in any form they take, they are wings. And then you have your jump pole or bar. So I'd say sometimes people call it poles, sometimes people call it bars. These are homemade jumps made of wood. They are done to Kennel Club specification because I'm in the UK. So Kennel Club specification tends to be the specification you see everywhere, even in shows that aren't Kennel Club, because people know that's what everyone wants. If you're in other countries, then you're going to have to look up those specifications that are specific to your organisation. Now, in general, the Kennel Club is pretty much in line with Europe, but just so you know. So in Kennel Club specifications, they say that a wing must be of an appropriate size. They don't actually give you a specific size. It has to be significantly higher than the final jump height that a dog has to take. Again, they don't tell you exactly how high, but they just say it has to be higher. And they have to be infilled here so that the dog doesn't go through the wing itself. So in regards to the poles, usually they're made of pipe, and these days you do see old wood ones. They're about, this one's 40 mil, so this is a diameter. So this is a good example of what you would expect at a Kennel Club show pole wise. They can vary because again there's no exact specification. In terms of width, this is a 5-foot pole. This is the commonest width of pole you see, which is 1.53 meters. You can see 4-foot poles, but in general today in competition we always see 5-foot poles, certainly at Kennel Club organisations. But again, that can vary, so you can have a pole between 4 foot and 5 foot to go across your jumps. That's the maximum and minimum distance you would expect your jump to be. In terms of foot size, again, the Kennel Club is very easygoing about your foot size. They don't give you general specifications. So you tend to, I modelled these on jumps, pre-existing jumps that manufacturers had made, so that you can get a rough idea. Obviously, if you're buying your jumps from somewhere rather than making them yourselves, then you're going to get things that are Kennel Club specification, if you're buying from organisations such as First Contact. If you're buying somebody else's homemade jumps, it might not be, but just bear that in mind. In terms of colour for your jumps, you can actually have any colour on the jump. There's no there's no specific colour for you to have. You can have any colourway. You can see I've got purple and green, and I've got pink and blue, and you'll go plenty of places and you'll see lots of different colour formations. You can have them all a solid colour, or you can have them split into two different colours. I generally try and choose colours that look good on grass for the dog, but as I say, there's no specifics. With jumps, generally there are stripes on the jumps, poles, to help identify the dog identify where the pole is, but you can have plain. Normally you will see something like this stripe. So this is quite a traditional pole with a large amount of white and then the black bits there, but you'll see other colourways. You know, you might see blue and red, grey and white, all sorts. So you can actually go to town with your colours if you want, but I always try and make it so it's fairly easy for the dog to see. Next thing to look at is the cups. So this is a cup. Why is it called a cup? It's because the pole sits in it like a cup, and it's designed to be very easy for the pole to flick out of the cup, so they're not fixed in place. The pole should just go like that. Now you can see on my jumps, because they're homemade and they're for private use in my training field, so for my use only, I have got the cups are fixed on, they're screwed on, they're fixed heights. You can get other types of cup which slot into a hole in the jump, and there are various types of these. So some just slot straight in, and some are like they have called a keyhole function, so they go in and then they push down so they hold in place better. The reason for that is it means that you only have one set of cups on any time. The set of cups will be for the height you're jumping at that time. The idea being is that it prevents any injuries caused by these cups sticking out. So if you've got several cups here and your dog was jumping this height, they might clip this cup. It's a very low risk, but in kennel club competitions, that is what they now do, is that they're all slot-ins so that you only ever have one set of cups. So generally, if you're buying jumps from a manufacturer, so as I say, First Contact, or one of those ones that do jumps and they actually hire those jumps out for competition, you'll get the cups will be insertable and removable. But as these are homemade, and because I know my dogs and what I'm training, and also because I've only got the heights I need on here and not my higher heights, I decided to have mine as screwed on, because it does need an extra tool to have a hole in your wood. In terms of the material your jumps are made of, you're going to see 3 types of material used. You're going to see wood, you're going to see plastic, and you're going to see aluminium. Whenever you look at any of these jumps, you'll find they're extremely lightweight. So when we say wood, we're not talking heavy wood. This is just pine, and it's very light. I know it's very light because every time I come here in the morning, most of these jumps are flat because the wind has knocked them over in the night. When talks of plastic, it's obviously a plastic that is weather resistant. Again, extremely light. Again, it'll go over easy. And with aluminium, again, the aluminium is very thin, very light. And the reason for these materials being light is so that if your dog crashes into the wing or even just clips it, it will give. It may not go completely over, but it will give rather than resist the dog and hurt the dog. So if you have some people make these jumps really heavy and they go, yeah, brilliant, it's not going to fall over. You don't want that, because if your dog hits that hard and it doesn't give, they're going to hurt themselves, and that's the last thing we want. We want these jumps to just fall over at the drop of a hat. So if anything does happen, and if you come up, and I'm up here on a windy day, my jumps do just drop a hat. So, but that's what you want, because it's a safety factor for your dog. So even the aluminium jumps, though, that sounds, oh, that'd be hard, they're actually so light that all you have to do is clip them and they'll just fall straight over. Same applies to the pole. Almost all places these days, poles are plastic. You will occasionally get to shows with older jumps where they are still wood, but at a kennel club show you would generally expect them to be, if not all of them, certainly most of them, plastic. The reason for this, again, is it's light. If the dog clips it, it just drops. It means that there's nothing there to hurt the dog. So if you've ever seen a dog crash straight into a wooden bar across the chest because they've completely misjudged it, and it happens, or they've fallen on it, that's a hard impact on a wooden pole. Whereas this, it might hurt, you know, they're still going to clip them, but it's going to just give, it's light, they're not going to have an injury from it. They shouldn't do. It does mean poles are very light and will fall out of their cups very easily, but it is a safety factor for the dog. So always bear that in mind. You don't want heavy poles in your jumps. If you're making them yourself, you don't want a pole that's going to sit there if your dog hits it. You want it to just fall. One last thing to think about with wings. This is a pretty standard design for wings. So you've got the triangle with inserts on them. So the dog can't fit through the wing. It is still a barrier, but it's open. You can also get wings where they have a filler on them. And a filler is a complete piece across here that blocks any light coming through, if you like. So it's a complete piece. And some of these, if you've ever watched Crafts or some of the bigger shows like Olympia, you'll see they have these great big box fillers on some of the wings, the start and finish. Again, that's the same difference. That's covering the complete face of the wing. Enables them to have logos on them, obviously, but it also is sometimes they do it to mix up the jumps. It also can occasionally cause dogs problems. So while you see these as the majority of the jumps you see, you might occasionally like to put something in front of those jumps to enable your dog to see a slightly different format. And now lastly, we're going to look at the heights of a jump. So you can see I've got 2 heights on this jump and 3 on this one. That's because at this moment in time, I've only got small and medium dogs running, so I don't need the extra heights. But in general, you will see 5 heights. So there'll be an extra 2 heights here. And 4 of those heights are regular classes in Kennel Club Agility, and the 5th height is what you'd get in any size classes or veterans classes. Or in UKA, because they do things slightly different, because you can jump a height lower in each of the grades. So if my dog normally runs medium, they can run small at UKA, you will see that 5th height. So they are set at 20 centimetres, and that is to the top of the pole. So it's not to this cup, it's to the top of the pole. So that is 20 centimetres. Then they're 30 centimetres, which is classified as Kennel Club Small. This is classified as micro or mini, depending on the course you go, but that's micro. Or sometimes it's toy height, but this is so this is small height. Sometimes that's called mini, sometimes small. Then we've got the medium height, which is 40 centimetres, again to the top of the pole, so that's medium. Then you have a 5th height, which would be about here. That's called intermediate height, and that is 50 centimetres. And then you have large height, which is the highest height, and that's 60 centimetres. So those are your heights you'll see in competition. You're not expecting any dog to jump higher than 60 centimetres. You know what height to jump your dog at because you get official measure. We'll go into that in another video. But those are the heights you will see on your jumps and the heights you will need on them if you're making your own. So that, in essence, is a jump. Everything you need to know, all the terminology, and now we'll start to look at things a little bit more complex. I hope you've enjoyed this Everyday Canines video, and if you have, you might like to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any questions, obviously you can post on there and I'll attempt to answer them. And I hope to see you all again very, very soon.